Welcome back. This is lesson 19. In this lesson, we are going to explore the rib feature. As you can see, this part has 6 ribs. Here's another version of that part with 6 ribs. Here's another part with 1 rib. A rib is just a thin section of material used to reinforce a part, to add strength. This rib here would add strength between the upper face and the lower face of this angle plate. These ribs would add strength to this the wheel or whatever it is that we have created. Now, as we look at these and compare this to extrude, and we have used extrude before, and that's our sort of our base starting point for most of our parts that we have drawn. In many situations, yes, you could use extrude and draw a sketch to create your rib, but using the rib command has some extra features and some conveniences that make it a little simpler than trying to use extrude. So let's start. We will go ahead and begin a new part and start recreating this first circular part. Let's draw our first sketch on the XY plane. That is a 6-inch circle. Finish that sketch and we will extrude that 2 inches. Draw a new sketch on that top face. We'll draw the outer circle, draw the inner circle. We'll put that outer circle a 1/2 inch in from the outside, and we will make the inner circle 1.25. Finish that sketch and extrude that profile. Drag that down. That makes it a cut. Let's make that depth 1.25 inch and a quarter. So now we have a space inside here that we can fill with a rib. Now for the first one, we're going to keep it fairly simple. Let's make a new sketch on this top face. We will create a line, but so we have something to stick to. Let's project geometry and get that edge and that edge. We have the center point as well. That will give us enough geometry to constrain to. Let's select all of that and change it to construction geometry, just so we know that nothing is going to try to use that to create any features. Then come in here and draw the line. See, we're getting some snap points pop up, so we'll click one right on the top. Another one on that inner circle. Let's see what we've got. We are stuck to those circles, but we can still move left to right. We need 1 dimension, as it tells us down here. So we will add a coincident constraint, click on that line, click on the origin. Now it is stuck in place, it is turned black, we are fully constrained, and we can finish that sketch. See, we have this rib connecting the 2 top edges, sort of floating up here in space. If we were using an extrude, we would have to create a larger closed profile. But here with rib, all that we have to have is this single line that is going to be the center line of our rib. So come up here to the Create section, click on Rib, and see what it gives us. It automatically selects that line, and we see that it has generated a preview of where this rib is going to go. Notice it does fill in this side where the line is drawn, shows this shape all throughout the whole part, but leaves this side open. So the only solid geometry it's going to create is over here. Go ahead and click on OK and see what we get. We have a single rib. It is a consistent thickness all the way down. Let's go back and double click the rib and edit that. See, it has the thickness of 0.1. We can change that to be whatever we want, and that will of course automatically update as we go. But there are a few other considerations inside this box that we need to look at. In this example, what was automatically selected was the normal to sketch plane. Our sketch plane is on top of the part, and the rib is going normal to that, or perpendicular to that, basically, down into the part. If we click on the other option, which is parallel to sketch plane, it would be trying to create a rib across the top of the part, and the way that this part is configured just does not support that. So we go back to the normal to sketch plane, and see, we've got the direction. If we had selected that line and it didn't appear, the direction could be a problem. Extend profile, we'll look at that one in a little bit. draft, we can add an angle. If this was a molded part, very often it would have an angle to it, so it would pull out of the mold more easily. I added an angle to that. Let's see, we can't really see that as well, so let's make it more extreme, something that we wouldn't necessarily do in a molded part, but just something so you can see there. So there is a draft angle of 10 degrees. You can select where you want that to start. See here, 10 degrees is too steep. If we start at the bottom, let's go 1 degree. If we go 1 degree, it starts with full width at the bottom, tapers up towards the top. Let's leave this width top. We'll put 2 degrees on it just so it's enough that we can see. And click OK. Just to fill this thing out, let's give it a circular pattern. Click on that rib feature. The rotation axis, I can click anywhere that is round. And we'll stick with 6 of them spread out equally over 360 degrees. So there we have 6 ribs filling in this round part. Let's look at the second example though. It starts with the same basic shape, but it has a different rib profile. Let's go back here. We'll just edit this one. We will delete the circular pattern. We will delete the rib. And we're going to create a new sketch. And this time, instead of sketching on top of the part, let's sketch on the YZ plane because it goes through the middle of the part. So we will create a Start 2D sketch, hit F7 so we can see through the part. And now we are working inside the part. And we need some geometry to stick to, so let's project geometry. Get those 2 lines. Could have selected construction geometry before I drew them. So make them construction geometry so that our only regular geometry is this line that we're going to create. Let's come in here and make a shape. It doesn't really matter right now what we do. Let's go down here, click a little, drag out, make an arc, come over here and finish and touch that side. Anyway, let's do it this a little bit different. I'm going to hit undo and get rid of all that because I'm going to show you one extra feature that rib has. Let's not stick to that sidewall. Let's come in here and create this sketch without touching the sidewalls. In this situation, there's no reason I couldn't do that, but I'm just going to show you what rib can do if you're in a situation where it just doesn't work well, doesn't make sense to get to the sidewalls. I'm going to just leave a dimension there of 1/8 of an inch. Let's make this 0.375. Make up a number for the circle, or for the corner radius. Make that a 1/2 inch. Let's set this line down 0.250 from the bottom. Bring this in 0.375. Everything has turned black. It is fully constrained. Finish that 2D sketch, and we will come up here and click rib again. If I come in here and click that profile, see, in its default state of normal to sketch plane, it gives me something really weird that I would not want. That's fine. We click parallel to sketch plane, and it selects that line and goes down inside the part the way that we want it. Notice here, extend profile is automatically selected and grayed out for us. We can't change it. What that did, see, our line ended here, and our other line ended here. It did not come all the way to that sidewall, but it continues out in the direction that line was going and connects this rib, finishes it out all the way to the sidewall. Notice in this situation, we do not have the option to create a draft. That was in the parallel to, or then the normal to sketch plane mode, but that does not appear in parallel to sketch plane. There's not a good way to create a draft on this face as we are drawing it. So we can change the thickness if we want. Let's make it thicker and say OK. Come back in and give this one another circular pattern just to fill things out. All right, so there you have it, 2 different ways to create rib using normal to sketch plane or parallel to sketch plane. And let's look at one more simple example here, and that is this angle block and this gusset that is formed. Notice in the first two examples, we filled this inner space with the rib. It connected to walls that were across from each other. So let's start a new part. A new sketch on the XY plane. Let's draw the profile of this angle plate in here, making up numbers as we go. Let's see, we'll call this, make that 3 inches, 5 inches tall. Make each side wall of this a 1/2 inch thick. I know I'm moving quickly through this, but if you've come this far in these lessons, hopefully you can at least draw that much. If you need to pause and get caught up, there's the dimensions that we are using. We'll finish that sketch, and when we extrude, I want to be sure we go both directions. We want this symmetric around our starting plane, and we will see why in just a second. So I want to create my sketch for my rib on the XY plane. We will start a new 2D sketch there. Let's hit F7 so we can see through. We will draw a line. I want to create that rib between those two faces. Let's just finish the sketch right here. I don't have it fully constrained yet, but let's just go in here and see what happens. There is a line floating out in space, but what I can see is that if it continued, it would intersect both of those faces. So if I create a rib here, I need to change this to parallel to sketch plane. I can give it a thickness, a little thicker. Let's make that 1/2 inch. Everything's 1/2 inch on here. Notice again, it takes that line that is floating in space and extends it out to those sidewalls. Of course, as we have done it, we don't know exactly where it sits. I just wanted you to see how it would fill in this situation. But let's come back in here. We'll hit F7 again, and let's give it a little more definition. I do want it to stick to the sidewalls in this situation, because I want to be able to fully define exactly where it is. There may be times that you don't need that. You don't have to have the dimension off of the corner, and it works okay just to have that sitting out in space. Say okay right there, finish our sketch, and we come back up here, click rib again, click on that line, go back to parallel to sketch plane, and there is our rib. Let's look at one more option. Notice these two options right here, to next. The to next means go to the next solid that you find. So it takes everything below this line, goes towards the part, and fills it in. Of course, if we had gone out the opposite direction, it's looking for something out in space, and it doesn't hit anything. This direction, the default direction down towards the part, hits solid and fills in that area. We do have this option of finite, and we can tell it, how thick do I want this to be? Let's make that a 1/4 inch thick. So now it doesn't go all the way down to hit the solid. It just creates this brace right here that is a 1/4 inch thick. That's it for now for the rib. Go practice this. Try different shapes. If something goes wrong, look at these two options, normal to sketch plane versus parallel to sketch plane. Look at what direction you're going. You can look at these, see if we click one direction or the other, it puts it off to the side of that center work plane. But I created this part all around the work plane so everything can be centered and symmetrical. Check or uncheck extend profile if that gives you any problems, but work through, try the different options, practice rib, and then come back for one more lesson in this series. We'll see you then.